Boy, I tell you, y'all done missed out if y'all weren't here live because we had a good time just now, hanging out a little bit and doing a little pre-talk before we get started. So the inner circle is here and we are ready to jump into this conversation, honey. But I am going to go ahead and plug these two things. Go listen to Holly Bailey's album. It is called Love or something like that. And then Meg the Stallion just released, well, by the time this comes out, this is going to come out in December. So if you have not already partaken, go change your life. And if you have already partaken, go back and change your life again. And it samples Kissing You by Total. Go check that out. Go check that out. Go watch the video. Go be glued to the screen. Okay? Because it's transformational. All right. All right. So let us get into the things, y'all. Hey, y'all. I'm Kimberland, and this is the Frolicking Truth, a soft space for Black women who are tired, brilliant, and ready to heal. Here, joy meets justice. We calm our Black ass nervous systems, we unmask, and we leave behind whatever that is trying to kill us. You're seen here, you're safe here, and you don't have to do this alone. You know what I love so much about us as Black women is that we are so multifaceted and we can really go from twerking to intellectual brilliance in 12 seconds or less. And I think, why would you want to do anything else with your life but be a Black woman? I get it. I get why they always want to be us because we are pretty much phenomenal. So, anyway, hey y'all, welcome. Come on in, find a comfortable spot and take a seat. I'm so excited to have you here with me for episode 30 of the Frolicking Truth podcast for Black women who are tired, brilliant, and ready to heal, where joy meets justice and nervous systems get free. It is okay if you don't identify with any of those descriptors. It just means that when you come ready to listen, ready to learn, and ready to support. I do want to kick this off by saying this was pre recorded. So this was recorded on October 25th, okay? So this is not being released until December. So if anything has happened in between that time, child, I don't know, and I'm gonna have to talk about it when I get back, okay? Because I am on break, y'all. Now, this is me in the not break me thinking about what it's gonna be like for break me. And break me is very much excited and very much chilling and resting my brain. All right. And that's what we're talking about today is we're talking about my brain people, neurodivergence, how I figured out that I was neurodivergent, and the things that come along with that. So, I also want to give a shout out to the inner circle. They are here in the chat, hanging out, child, and helping to co construct this episode, as well as asking questions, giving comments, giving encouragement, just all the things. So, if you are like, dang, I would have wanted to be there, I would have wanted to be up in there with y'all, come on down over to the archive. The archive is the Patreon, and it is the place where we are keeping all of the recipes and keeping our culture and our music and really making sure that we are developing an archive that honors our blackness and our brilliance. Okay. So if you want the golden ticket, you want to be in here for the things, come on over and hang out. It's only $5 a month. And that $5 will get you entry into all of the different collections that we have. The inner circle is my collection. So that's where my people at. That's where we be hanging out. But we also have spaces like the change corridor where, honey, you can get activated and understand what's happening. Okay. And then we also have places like the sunflower path where you can get information about healing and plant-based medicine and gardening. And y'all, we got some cooking classes coming up. I don't want to call them classes. some cooking experiences that are coming up. Ooh, wee, baby, 2026 is gonna be lit. So anyway, you want to be in that number. Go over to patreon.com/minding my black ass business. That is how you are going to be able to join the archive. Every person that comes into the archive is a keeper, and you decide what you're gonna be responsible for keeping. Okay, but that's where we at. All right, and that's where I'm at during this break, and then I'll see y'all when I get back in 2026 in January. Okay. All right. Now, our next session of the Healing Circle is coming up on Saturday, December 13th, immediately after the Frolicking Truth. So that's next week. We will have the Healing Circle. And the Healing Circle is a space for Black women who are looking to reconnect with their bodies, looking to be in a space where they don't have to explain all this stuff that's going on out here. We could just be like, girl, exactly. Right. So we can have those kind of conversations without having to worry about translating things and all that kind of stuff. In the Healing Circle, we do breath work. We have a yoga flow. We've partnered with the Well Educator. So she leads us in a nice yoga flow that gets our blood flowing and all of that. And then we have some time to debrief and share affirmations and then get kicked off on our Saturday, you know? So if that also sounds like something that you would love to participate in, you have to register at tinyurl.com/Black Women Healing Circle. tinyurl.com/Black Women Healing Circle. That is how you get the link to join us for the Healing Circle. And we do that every second Saturday of the month. So that is continuing even during this break, okay? Because that's restoration. Thank you very much. So, yeah, so come hang out with us. Again, tinyurl.com/Black Women Healing Circle. Last announcement before we get into the things. I am collecting names for the Sisterhood Heals book study, which is something else that we'll be launching in 2026. Sisterhood Heals is a book by Dr. Joy Harden Bradford that I've talked about quite a bit over here, and we are starting a book study. So to get on the interest list for the book study, go to tinyurl.com/Sisterhood Heals. And then once I get everything scheduled out and all the logistics are taken care of, I'll be sure to hit you up and let you know what that's going to look like and sound like. What if the thing you've always called too much was the exact thing God designed on purpose? This is for the ones who've always known they were different. Too sensitive, too loud, too knowing, too intuitive, too woo-woo. But what if your sensitivity is actually your superpower? What if your intuition was your inheritance? Discover Your Destiny is a 10-week sacred journey back to yourself. We explore the design of your soul, your spiritual gifts, and the unique way that God speaks to you. This isn't church. It's not a rule book. It's not a performance. It's the moment you stop chasing approval and start walking in divine alignment. You'll gain clarity, language, and confidence around who you are and what you are here on the earth to do. You'll learn the real voice of God. And if you feel called to go on to become a certified intuitive melanated life coach, this is where that path begins. There are 2 ways to enter this sacred container: the Destiny track, full investments and coaching experience, or the Divine Exchange track, where internship meets soul work. You'll support podcasting, content creation, or brand development behind the scenes while learning how your unique gifts benefit the collective. Your knowing isn't a flaw. It's the fingerprint of God. This is your invitation, and I hope that you'll answer. All right, so let's get into the things. I told y'all today that we are talking about neurodivergence and brains and all that kind of stuff. One of the questions that I get asked most frequently is, how did I know that I was neurodivergent? And let me also preface all of this with saying I really didn't figure out that I was neurodivergent until it was over the course, I believe, of 2023. I think I had inklings before that, and like I was already asking myself the questions, so I'll get to that in a moment. But I really didn't make the connection like, yeah, girl, this is you. You need to go ahead and buy a t-shirt, child, because this is definitely you. I didn't get that understanding until 2023. All right. So I want to preface all of that. And I'll also say here at the top that I was diagnosed by a psychologist, but also self diagnosis is very valid because you live with yourself every single day. 24/7. You are the only person who understands what it is like in your brain and how your brain operates. So knowing that, that makes you an expert on who you are. Okay. So if you're asking yourself these questions, or even as I'm talking about these things, and you're like, that kind of sound like me a little bit, then get curious. Get curious. So, with that, I'm going to say curiosity over judgment is what we are holding on to here in this space. Curiosity meaning asking questions, thinking about what might be under the surface, or just being curious. What we not finna do is be having to justify what someone is feeling. That energy is not welcome over here. And trust me, child, I'll block you real good. Okay. So just want to go ahead and put that out there. You got to tell the people how to behave when they come into a space. I believes in setting the tone. All right. All right. So where do I begin? The year was 1981. No, so but the year was 1981. So I was born in 1981, and I do think it is important to understand in context, especially because I don't know where this is going to go in the future, that back then thinking about neurodivergence and all that wasn't really a thing. We're not talking about mental health. We're not talking about brains. We're not talking about trauma. We're not talking about nothing, honey. Okay. And the world that I grew up in my home, was very much about achieving Black excellence. I've talked about this a few times on different episodes, that actually the episode last week, when I was even talking about food, we did not have money like that. Like, we were getting our food from the food bank. We had government cheese and canned peanut butter and canned chicken, okay, and powdered eggs. All right. So that's kind of where we started. Now, when my dad came along, then now there was a second income in the house, and then we moved on up to the east side and we got a house. But then all that did was made the pursuit of Black excellence that much more attainable. So I spent a lot of my life very much a high achiever, right? I was the top of my class in from preschool on. Okay, I walked into kindergarten. My grandmother taught me how to read and how to write in cursive by the time that I was going into kindergarten. So when I got to kindergarten, I was very much prepared. Now, for context sake, back then, and y'all might not even know what cursive is, child. These y'all that got these birthdays that start in the 2000s, y'all probably don't even know what cursive is. Lord have mercy. We're losing the recipes. So anyway, my grandma had taught me how to write in cursive, but usually in school, you don't learn how to write in cursive until second grade. So that's kind of just context, right? So I was always high achieving, always at the top of the class. Graduated valedictorian in eighth grade. And also, I went to a private Lutheran school. It wasn't a lot of kids that were there. We had classes of maybe 15 or 20 people, and there was only one class per grade level, right? So it was a really small school, but they did a really good job of making sure that they prepared us for high school. I also every summer was in some type of summer science program, whether that was at Dillard University or Xavier University, University of New Orleans. I'm doing robotics. I'm doing engineering. Like the comment says, hashtag high achievers. This is me. Okay. So I realized very early that school was something that was easy for me and it was something that I can do. So during that time, I always felt like I was clearly adopted. So, how do I explain this? Like, I don't know how else to explain it besides I always felt like I was adopted. So I was in my life, but I very much was not in my life. Like I was always adjacent to my life or behind my life or outside of my life. I just always grew up feeling like I was in the twilight zone. Like it just always felt like, what is happening here? Like, why am I not understanding? Something else I was often told is that I was always ready to cry at the drop of a hat. You know, Kim, she always had a tear in her eye ready to fall, girl. It didn't take nothing for Kim to start crying, girl. That's how they would tell me about myself and who I was as a child. So, of course, they very much, was trying to break me out of that, all that crying and shit. So that was something that was always present. I always had a strong sense of justice and wanting to do the right thing. So back in my day, back in the 80s, they had Officer Friendly would come into the school. And Officer Friendly would come to the school and be like, look both ways before you cross the street and put on your seatbelt so that you are, getting to the next destination. And baby, I was the police for the family. You understand? Excuse me, you all don't have on your seatbelts. We need to click it or ticket. Excuse me. You're not supposed to be once cell phones came around texting and driving. Excuse me. Like I was very much like Officer Friendly said that you must look both ways before you cross the street and you only looked one way. So you need to look. It was a mess. Okay. I'm a snitch, been a snitch, definitely was a tattletale when I was in school. Cause why y'all not doing the right thing? Like get focused. This is school. What are we doing here? So I very much like was that person always. And then you pick up along the way, like people don't really like that too much. People don't like accountability. People don't like the truth, right? So then you kind of learn to like not say everything, but it's still things that needs to be said at times, right? I very much like just grew up like, what am I supposed to do? Let me do what I'm supposed to do. Let me do well at school. But also, these people are mad wild, and I don't know if I really belong to them. I don't really know. So it was a very, very interesting situation. So, I go on from middle school to high school, and I had friends. I was never like a super popular person or anything like that. And also the way, so I went to a private all girls high school and on scholarship. That's important to know. Okay, I was always in school on scholarship because one thing baby can do is take a test. Okay, baby can knock that out the park and use these critical thinking skills. Got it, no worries, right? So anyway, so I'm at the high school and I'm in honors classes, so I'm around the same types of people all day and the actual same people all day, and I'm just like in school and I'm doing different activities. I'm marching in the parades and in every club and all this kind of stuff, mostly because I didn't want to go home. But I'm just achieving because the goal is to get up out this house. You understand me? That is what I am trying to do. I need to get up out this house because when I was 8 years old, somebody told me about this thing called college. And they were like, if you go to college, you can get, first they say you can get money to go to college. And if you go to college, you go away somewhere and you learn some things. And like this, remember, the goal was Black excellence, right? So it's like, okay, college it is, right? And I don't know where that conversation came from. I don't know if that came from like conversations I was having with my mother or like where that came from, but I knew very clearly that college was the goal and college was going to get me out of here. So I'm doing my lessons, right? So I have friend groups Like there was a core group of us, it was four of us that would hang out. And then I had like adjacent friend groups, and I would hang out with people and they would hang out with me, but I was never really like somebody's anchor. So even in my core friend group, there were four of us, and then two of the friends were already friends before they got to high school. So they already had a friendship. And then there was another friend that came in, but then she and I were like really close for a while, but then she kind of started having other friends. So then it was just always like, I was just like, okay, I guess we're done with that now. Like that was my life. Even in middle school, it was a group of four of us, and I had one friend that was we were friends since third grade, and then there were two other girls that came from a different school in seventh grade, and they were already friends. So then the four of us got to be friends. But then the friend that was my friend since third grade started being friends with them, and then it was like, okay, I guess we're done with that. So that was just kind of always my life. And also, I've talked about this too. My middle school friends, they were off the chain, y'all. They used to be fighting and stuff. And I was not about to be fighting because I don't understand why we're fighting in the first place. Can somebody help me understand like what is actually happening? Because why can't we just use our words and figure this out? Like, so why are girls trying to fight us over these dusty boys that we've been in school with since second grade? Like, don't nobody want them, but they try. I don't understand why we have to fight. So my job then was to cuss people out, and I've talked about this before. So I used to cuss like a sailor, baby. I was cussing them down, and then also I gotta go home because I have to be home by 4 o'clock. Like, so I don't have time to be out here in these streets doing these things. So I became the friend that was, oh, she gonna be somebody in life. They would literally say this. They would be like, oh, like they would be, doing they shenanigans and things, and with some weeds and things that was happening back then. And I was, what I used to say? I used to be like, I need my brain cells because I got to get out this house. So I cannot. Like, so what would happen is we would go to spaces and they would be doing whatever they're doing. And then somebody inevitably would be like, what's up with her? And they'd be like, she's good. She's going somewhere. She going to college. She finna be somebody. She's straight, right? So that's kind of what the dynamics became. Like I was just the one who was like, she's straight. Don't be trying to pressure her to do stuff. She good, but also I need my brain cells because I got to get out this house, right? So that was kind of what it was like middle school, then high school. And again, by high school, I'm very focused on what the hell need to happen. So I'm doing what needs to get done. So I leave high school and go to college. Now, I don't remember this time very well in my life as far as my interactions with the bathroom, because there was definitely a community shower. I remember I had shower shoes, but I don't feel like it was bothering me, or maybe I was as conscious of what was happening in my body then, because I had trained myself. You got to do these things, right? So, college friend situation, same things. Okay. Again, it's a large group of friends. They clicked up here, there, and everywhere else. I'm just over here like, okay, I guess. Like, and the same thing, I pledged a sorority, and everybody got somebody but me, right? So I'm just used to like being by myself, but also I'm taking these like professions of friendship and sisterhood very seriously. Like, as we are saying, we're friends, or nobody really was calling me their best friend. I had a best friend in high school. Let me tell y'all real quick what happened with that, right? Because this is the kind of stuff that happened to me. So I have my best friend in hold on, before I tell y'all this, let me grab this comment. This comment says, ooh, that was my fear about college. Someone said floors of people were getting crabs from communal bathrooms. Ah, we did not have those experiences, but my God, today. And see, that's what I don't remember, like how many precautions I was taking. I know I was always very careful. I used to go to the same sink, the same shower, like all of that. But that, is a lot. That's a lot. Okay. So anyway, so this is what happened with my high school best friend, because this is the kind of stuff that happens to me. So I told you I was a group of four of us. So the two, it was two and two, right? So the other two, they go off to college, whatever. One of them was actually at school with me. And then this other friend that was like my person, my best friend, if you will, we also go off to college. So she goes to FAM, I'm at Fisk. We went to each other's graduations, like all of that. So I moved to Tampa and I get engaged. And so my fiance is in town at my house in Tampa. Now, her best friend was living in, another best friend that she had was living in St. Petersburg, which is like across the bridge from Tampa. Okay. So they're in town. Now, I had to go to work. I was a manager at Walgreens at the time. So I had to go to work, or I had just gotten off from work. Okay. But there was something about, I had the car. So my fiance is there in the house. I want to say I had just got home from work, and I go to take a shower. And I get out the shower and he tells me that my best friend had called with her friend to try to get my fiance to come hang out with them. And he was like, "Oh, Kim, just got off of work or whatever. She got the cards out." And it was like, and like, come hang out with us. And I'm like, so he's telling me this. And I'm like, what? I don't, why would y'all do that? So I call my best friend and I'm like, why would y'all try to get my fiance, who is here to see me, to come and be with y'all and leave me when he's here to be with me? I don't understand. And she thought it was the funniest thing in the world. Like, she was cracking up. And I was like, this friendship is over that day. So that's the kind of stuff like that be happening to me. I've got so many stories about this kind of stuff of people like Constance Kalanda put in the chat a little bit ago, the friend swap. And like, I don't understand it. I'm not the kind of person who is hoarding of my friends. I think that you can be friends with other people, but that also doesn't mean that you got to throw away the person that you was already friends with. Like, I don't, it's weird. It's like really, really weird. So anyway, so that was like post college and all of that. So now I'm living in Tampa and I start teaching, and I get really curious about my students. My first year teaching, I remember I had the student named Andre. And Andre had ADHD, ADD, ESC, BAD, and all sorts of other things. I don't call kids bad. Kids make bad choices. I don't believe that they're bad kids. But Andre was a lot, right? So this is my first year teaching, right? And they prepping me. They're like, listen, he got a lot of things going on. So this is my first experience for real with like ADD or ADHD or anything like that. So I would call Andre over to come and talk to me about something. He would dance over to me, and then I'd be like, Andre, what's going on? He'd be like, I don't know. Like, he could not get his shit together at all. Like, not even a little bit. So, through much trial and error, I finally created this space in the back of the room for Andre. And I was like, listen, you could be back there in that square back there, and you can MC Hammer your life away. Okay, you can walk it out. You can do the jerk. You can do all of the things that this was 2006. You can do all of the things that you need to do back there in that corner. And when I ask you if you heard what I said, you better be able to answer my questions. That's what I know, right? So that was my first experience with like neurodivergence and brain differences. So years go on, and I keep getting different versions of Andre. So now I'm really curious like about what is like at the core of this, and also how can I help my students to be successful, because what we cannot do is be sitting up here going back and forth all class. I'm not finna do that. We got some science that we got to learn. So I really started getting interested in brain research and just really trying to understand what was going on. I also always worked at schools that were high needs schools with kids who had experienced a lot of trauma, and I'm seeing like the behavioral manifestations of what is happening. So the more that you get into trauma informed studies and trauma informed practices, the more you kind of see like what you should look for and like what that looks like and sounds like and how again you support the student. So for instance, people that have experienced trauma, something that is really important for them is consistency. You need to know and predictability. Like, so we would be really intentional with our routines and procedures within the classroom so that students knew what to expect, so that they could help their nervous system calm down. Now, we done talked a lot about brain research over here, right? And we've talked about our upstairs brain and our downstairs brain, and when we're in survival mode and when we've been triggered and all of that. Well, somebody who has experienced trauma may be in their downstairs brain, they have gotten triggered by something that was a threat or might have felt like a threat. So we're battling against all of this as I'm trying to get you to sit down and learn this science. So I really started getting very interested in that around the same time. So I left the classroom in 2011, 2012. So around this time, I then started doing professional development. And the places that I really saw myself thriving and the places that I cared about was in regards to thinking about brain research and trauma, restorative practices, social emotional learning. So I'm like, sign me up for all of those trainings. So I started to really become an expert in that area. At the same time, I had started going to therapy. Now, I skipped all of, remember, because in between all of this is I done met this man and now I'm in this abusive relationship and I'm trying to figure out how the hell I got in this abusive relationship. How do I get out of this abusive relationship? I'm also in the church. So they're, talking crazy to me and like telling me I need to do this and that to be a good Christian. And like all of this is going on at the same time, right? So, once I started like really all of that's going on at the same time. So then I got to therapy. So once I got to therapy, the first thing that I learned in therapy was boundaries. And my therapist was like, "Girl, you got a sign over your head that says that if it's broken, Kimberland will fix it." And I was like, turn that off. How do we do that? So she introduced me to the concept of boundaries. So this light is bothering me, y'all. Hold on. I got to turn on the other light because it's about to get dark.
A few moments later.
This is my own little corner, my own little chair where I can be whatever I want to be. Anyway, so so the first thing that I grew to understand about was boundaries, and I realized my therapist had did something with me called legitimate rights. And she was basically like, you have legitimate rights as a person. So for instance, some of our legitimate rights are you have the right to say no, and that be a complete sentence. You have a right to not have to explain yourself for why you give a no. You have a right to not be friends with somebody and not restore a relationship with somebody even after they caused harm. You have that right. So I'm learning about these rights in real time. And then I'm also realizing, girl, you've been infringing on people's rights. Because I was very much, if you gonna tell me no, why? Why? Right. So I kind of like started like battling with that and asking myself, if I wanted to be somebody that was dishonoring somebody else's rights, now that I knew that I had these rights that I could exercise. Now, keep in mind, I told you I was very much justice. This is what you're supposed to do, like whatever. So once I learned about, oh, I've actually had all these rights the whole time, now I also need to be accountable to not dishonoring somebody else's rights. So I learned about that in the process of boundaries. Let's Talk Sis says, I love how the right language can radically improve self acceptance. Exactly. That is exactly what we are here to talk about today. So, she taught me about that. So I started to understand that. Then I started to understand the type of manipulative relationships that I was in and how people were taking advantage of my wanting to do the right thing or wanting to help people, caring about people, like all of that. So then I started like making those connections, right? Okay. So I get out of the abusive relationship. I'm continuing during this time to do research because I'm still working in education. I'm still doing professional development. Now I've gotten over to, I went back to a school. So now I'm at the school and I'm improving the school and like all of this. So I'm doing all of these things. And I'm also in therapy, understanding what has happened to me. So now I'm gaining the language about my own traumas. And I'm like, oh, this is wild. Damn, that's crazy. Like that was trauma too. Woo wee. Like this is a lot, right? So now I'm seeing myself and my students, which I had always seen myself in my students, and it was always, I always tried to be very intentional about that. One of the things with me in education and just in life general and stop looking at people and actually see people. Stop for a moment to see who somebody is and what they may be feeling and like everything that's going on. Because a lot of times we just be looking at people and you're not even looking them in their eye to see if they're actually okay. Like how we be asking people, hey, how you doing? And now you gone. And the person, they might be having the worst day of their life. You know? So I'm learning all of these things at the same time. I'm gathering this information, I'm processing it, and I'm starting to see myself in my students, and I'm starting to see, like, girl, you have had a lot that you've had to deal with. I processed the fact that I was in this abusive relationship. I've talked about the last time that I had to see him was at this fashion show, and I wound up having to call the police, and like I was just over it, and like it was just a lot. All right. So after all of that, I wind up meeting Lewis and getting engaged. Okay. Now, one of the first conversations that we had was about like tiny houses and minimalism and like all this kind of stuff. So he was like pointing out like different things. Like he would just point out like different things. One of the first things that we were talking about was we were taking a shower, and I do not like to step on, even as I'm saying this, y'all, I'm sitting here crunching my toes as I'm sitting here saying this. So I don't like to step on the drain of the shower. It really cringes me out. I don't like it at all. So of course, usually when you're in the shower with yourself, like you don't have to navigate like how you're taking a shower. So we're in the shower together, and I'm like doing everything in my power to not have to step on this drain. Like at one point, he might have like moved me, and I was like, "Ah!" Like it was like a lot. So he was like, okay, note to self. I was like, I just don't like it. I do not like it. I didn't really know why, but I was like, I do not like it. Right. And again, I've just been with myself all this time. So I haven't noticed these little things like that are happening. So that happened. There was another time, by this time I had gotten to Pennsylvania and I was in the bathroom and something had happened with the rug because I definitely have to have a rug to step on in the bathroom. I don't like tile and I don't like my feet to touch stuff. So however I was getting out of the shower on the rugs, I was very intentional about like stepping to one rug to the next. And Lewis is very much, I'm putting all his damn business out on the street. Let me do a quick poll. Let me ask y'all right quick. How do you use your bath rugs? This is actually a question that just came up in my Facebook memories today. Okay, this is option number one. You you step on the bath rug with a wet body. Might not be soaking wet, but you step on a bath rug with a wet body. Or option two, you dry completely off before you step on the rug because you don't want the rug to be wet. All right. Option one is you put your wet body on the bath rug. Don't have to be completely soaking wet, but you the bath rug might get wet. Or do you make sure that the bath rug don't get wet and you dry completely off? Y'all tell me in the comments. Okay. So I am number one. All right. Oh my God, I'm literally sitting here crunching my toes, y'all, while I'm sitting here. So I take my shower, I dry off a little bit, and then I step on the bath rug to help the bottom of my feet get dry. Right? So, and then I finish drying off on the bath rug. Lewis is number two. He don't like a wet bath rug, right? So we started having these conversations about like bath rugs and thing. And I'm like, why the hell you got a bath rug if you can't step on it when you're wet? Like, this is dumb. And he's like, I used to get my ass beat for stepping on bath rugs. It's wild. So we started having like all of these conversations. We also started having a conversation about brain people because I would notice when I would talk to him that like he's really good with calculating numbers and like processing information. And so I'd ask him a question and then he would kind of look off and then he would like blink his eyes sometimes and he'd just come back with this figure. And I'm like, bro, where did you go and what just happened just now? You know? So I got really intrigued and really curious about what was going on. So I noticed that as I'm talking to him. So now we're developing this language about how we want to talk about our brains because he's trying to explain to me everything that's happening in his brain. And so now I'm like, well, let me go take a walk through my brain and see what's happening in my brain, right? So we developed this concept of brain people. Now let me pause here and let me look at the poll. I step on the rug closest to shower, grab the towel, then immediately get to the dry rug closer to the door. Can't dry off in the shower, feels wrong. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, and see, I don't know that people think about these things, but this is the stuff I be thinking about all the time. Let's Talk Sis said is giving brilliant minds. Exactly. Exactly that. So I'm fascinated because I'm seeing this happening in front of my face, right? So we developed this brain people language and it makes me start getting really curious about what's happening in my brain. I'm talking we write movies, y'all. We write in full on. There are so many things that we have to animate to put out into this world were conversations that we were having about our brains and just random things that were happening. So I really started like leaning into this concept. And if you've been here for any amount of time, you have heard me talk about my brain people, okay? And we have probably had a conversation about your brain and your brain people because I saw like how much richer and deeper conversations that we were able to have about our brains. All right. So this is, let's say, 2021. All right, that this starts happening. So then I was friends with this lady on, and I'm still friends with her on Facebook, and she started sharing all of these like ADHD memes, and they were so funny. And also, I was like, I very much relate. Like every time she would share one, I would be like, I think that's me too. Like this is wild. And I had never thought of myself of having ADHD, though I would say to myself often that I had ADHD tendencies because I could never remember shit. So like I was taking birth control pills for a long time. I could never remember to take them damn birth control pills ever. Ever, ever. There was not probably 2 months in a row ever in 20 years that I was on birth control that I ever went 2 months straight with having taken my pill every day. And in the months that I took it every day, it definitely wasn't at the same time. That's for certain. Okay. But usually it looked like, okay, I missed, yes, so let me take two today. And then sometimes it looked like, I done missed 4 days. Okay, so if I take one a day, catch up today, then two tomorrow, then one a day after, then I might, okay, then that's gonna be two, and then one, but then I catch it. It was a wreck. I could never, ever, 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 ever remember. And I would have to do now what I know is a lot of work to keep my mind focused. Because, like, I would be reading stuff and then I would get distracted and I'm like, God, I got to read again. But what would happen is I would be beating myself up. So I would be saying to myself, get your shit together. Like, why are you like this? Like, get it together. So I'm like putting more pressure on myself instead of understanding what is actually happening. The question here says, does it work like that? They're talking about the birth control pills. Thankfully, that it worked enough for me to not have no kids. Is it supposed to work like that? Hell no. You're supposed to take it every day. But I did what I had to do. Okay. Um I did what I had to do. But I realized like now in hindsight how much energy that I was putting into remembering things and staying focused and all that. I also started to think about like the type of structure that I had built for myself. So mind you, during this time I had Jack. Jack had the Dia de los Muertos episode. So y'all go back and hear about Jack and who Jack was. So Jack was my dog. And that kept me very structured because he ate at 7 and 7, and I had to walk him. I had to make sure I was home. And also my life is very different at this time. I'm very much working consistently, like I have a routine, and I am somebody who needs a routine. Okay. So all of this is just stuff that kind of is, but not stuff that I'm actually thinking about, not after COVID and wasn't really nothing to do. Then my brain kind of started getting real more field trippy, if you will. So I'm not having to push my brain so hard per se. And I'm starting to see what it's like to kind of allow my brain to kind of frolic about. Then I got back to 2021. So now I'm in Pennsylvania and now I'm stressed the hell out. Okay. Now I'm stressed the hell out at this crazy ass job. It's COVID. I am living alone. So Lewis would come to visit, but it was really just me all day, every day. And so I'm in therapy, and I talked about this last week in the food episode. I'm talking to my therapist about me choking because I had just had a choking episode. I had choked on some food and I had to do the Heimlich maneuver on myself in the apartment, and it's only me. So I was telling her that, and she was like, talk to me more about your food sensitivities. And I had never thought about having food sensitivities outside of the fact that I knew I couldn't eat chicken anymore. I stopped eating chicken in like 2015, 2016, something like that. Like it just grossed me out one day. And I was just like, we're done here. So the more that she started to ask me about that, the more that I started to go back and thinking about my food sensitivities, like from a kid. So my cousin is on here, and I talked about this last week too about okra. And okra was something that used to get put into our beans, and it was incredibly slimy. And we were forced to eat that, and it was a lot, and I'm not eating that, right? And last week I was talking about how I would very much all the time be like, I'm not eating that. Like, you can beat me, I don't care, I'm not eating that. So as I started going back and thinking about the different issues that I had with food, also there's a lot of times that I won't get hungry, or like my hunger sensations might be broken, especially if I'm focused on something. I won't eat, I won't go to the bathroom. I am just there. Like I am just there. So I'm seeing these memes on Facebook from the lady I follow. I'm having these conversations with my therapist, and the thing that kicked me over the edge, Melissa, I see, she said I'm on the edge of my seat about this food. So this is going to release in December, but the episode prior to this, episode 29, I'm talking about food, so that might be an interesting episode for you to go back and watch. But the deciding factor, if you will, excuse me, when it came to food and the relationship with food, is that my therapist was like, you need to be sensitive about the energy of the food that you put into your body, because there's something that's happening with that energy. And I was like, okay, girl. So I'm hearing her, but I'm also not like taking in what she's saying. All right, girl. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whatever. Right. So after 2021, I wound up leaving the US. And so now I'm living I went to Playa del Carmen, then I went to Mexico City. During this time, I started seeing like I needed to be really intentional about the places that I was staying because I started, and at this time, I'm calling myself bougie. I was just like, y'all, I'm bougie and I have to stay at a particular type of place because certain type of bathrooms I couldn't get with. For example, I don't like tile. So if I open, an Airbnb or whatever, wherever, and there's a bunch of tile, I'm automatically like cringing. So I started realizing that, and I'm like, this is really interesting. Okay. So I'm just kind of taking note, but not really naming stuff. So now, fast forward to 2023. And I wind up, well, actually, let me not fast forward. Let me adjacent this. So I've talked about Lewis quite a few times. Lewis is my ex fiance, and we were going to get married in 2019. We did not get married because Lewis was experiencing his own like burnout and self discovery process. So, but we remained friends. So as I'm watching him go through this situation, I'm like a couple years behind him. So now stuff is happening that he was telling me about what's happening to him, and now I'm having the realizations myself. So I'm like, okay, this is really interesting. Like this is really interesting. So 2023, July of 2023 is when I had the mental health crisis. Okay. Now, before that, my apartment that I was living in here in Medellin, I remember that I had to do a lot of things to make the primary bathroom feel cozy for me. And so I was being aware that I was having like more issues around the bathroom, but I'm not naming it anything again. Okay. So 2023, I have the mental health crisis, and now I'm looking for a trauma therapist. So I get to a trauma therapist, and I'm just saying, what the hell just happened, girl? Because what do you do after you had a mental health crisis, girl? What happens now? Like, what you supposed to do? So she's like helping me kind of process, what was going on. So I'm telling her something one day, and I just kind of was like, I think I was talking about my dad, and I was like, yeah, and then he laughed, and but I understand why. And she was like, hold on, let's just pause right there, and let's not skip over that. Let's actually process that. So she was really good about making me stop and process stuff because before this, I was doing what they call emotional bypassing. Is I would just be like, yeah, 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 okay, it's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine, it's fine. Put it in a box, it's fine. Even though I knew that things weren't fine or things had impacted me, but I wasn't really doing anything with that. So she was really, really intentional in helping me to like stop and pause, which also was helping me to connect back to my body because in this time I had not really been connecting to my body because I had been on medication. So when I was in Pennsylvania, I got put on Lexapro. And the conversation that me and my doctor had was, if you give a fuck about what these white people talk about, girl, we're gonna up your dosage and until you don't care anymore. So I was on that regimen, right? So by this time in 2023, I had taken the first time I took myself off my medicine was in 2022. And so when I got put back on my medicine after the mental health crisis, I was having a very difficult time feeling. And I was like, this is odd because I have now experienced how to feel. And this is weird to not be feeling like I don't like this, right? So I'm processing that. I'm clocking that. I'm paying attention to that. So I wound up having to leave Colombia to move back to Mexico City in December of 2023. This was a very traumatic time for me. Um, I had moved in with this girl that I thought that we were friends. Turns out we were not, and that she tried to end my life, and it was a whole crazy situation. But the thing that was most difficult for me while I was there is that the bathroom that I used what felt like really, really cold. And it felt very much, I'm sitting here cringing as I'm talking about this. It was a lot of tile. And the shower was not properly draining. So I remember saying to myself, like I was beating myself up. I was talking to my therapist and I was like, I should be able to take a shower. Like I don't understand what is wrong because it was taking me like I say I probably took a shower when I first got there that first day. And then it was a couple days where I was like, I just cannot do it. Like I was sitting in the room like I cannot do this. Like I don't know what is wrong with me is what I'm saying right now. Mind you, I just said this mental health crisis. So I'm like, bitch, your brain is broke. Like this is crazy. So my therapist said, she was like, why do you have to step in the shower with bare feet? And I was like, I should be able to do that. And she said, who said, like, why is that something that you want to, the hill you want to die on about having your bare feet in the shower? She was like, why don't you just get shower shoes so that you don't have to think about it or worry about it? And it was like this novel idea for me, even though I told you I was in college and it was shower shoes and all that, but that was a communal bathroom. People was getting crabs in the bathroom. Like, so that made sense then. But in my mind, I should be able to do this in the here and now. And it was the first time that anybody had ever like treated, or the first time that it came up for somebody to be able to treat something like that with like so much compassion. And she was just like, just make the accommodations that you need. That's it. If having shower shoes is going to make you feel safe in your body, then do that. Right. So then she recognized, which I now know she's also neurodivergent, but she recognized the struggle that was going on with me. Right. So she said, I want to do a strategy called EMDR. EMDR is eye movement desensitization reprocessing. And it's basically what happens when you experience trauma is that your brain gets stuck in that place. And so instead of it moving out of your short term memory into your long term, we've processed this is over now, it remains in your short term memory. Like there are books like The Body Keeps the Score and like all of that where they talk about this. So what was happening is I was experiencing a lot around bathrooms in the present that I was carrying from the past that I didn't know. So, child, we do the EMDR thing, and I made the connection that a lot of the abuse that I used to experience was in the bathroom. And that was one of the places that my mother found joy and beat me when I got out the shower or out the bathtub or whatever. Like it just, bathrooms have just never been a safe place for me at all. So she helped me to make that connection. Then she started talking to me about somatic practices and ways to move energy through your body. So she taught me about like pushing a wall and or an immovable object, and you push it with all your might until all of that energy flows through you until you start shaking, and then you shake all of that out and then you reassess. And if you still have stuck energy, you do it again. Or like jumping up and down like as hard as you can, or like flapping, right? So when she started telling me this, I was like, this sounds like stimming. Like this sounds like autistic stimming. Also, this shit is working. Okay. And so at this time, before it, while she was working with me on this, I would do that before I got into the shower. So I would have, my towel on or whatever, and I would do my jumping exercises, and I would push the wall, and I would move all the energy around, and then I would put in my headphones so that I could drown everything else out, and I could just be in that space. And I got my shower down to 5 minutes flat, and I would be in, and I would be out, and then I would get back into the room, and then I would do all of it again and release all the energy, and then it was like, you did that, girl. You did that, right? So I'm thinking to myself this whole time while this is happening, I'm like, man, this is really wild. Like, I didn't realize I had these issues, is what I was calling them. So I wind up having another conversation with Lewis, and I'm telling him what happened. I'm like, I had to meet with my therapist, and she was helping me with the bathroom because I'm like, I'm having a really, really difficult time with the bathroom. And he said, have you ever read Howie Mandel's book? And I was like, no, but I actually think I should. So I pick up, or I go into Audible and I listen to the introduction of Howard Mendel's book. 5 minutes. Sis is in tears. I'm talking snotty nose crying, just like I cannot believe, like, this is my life. This is my life. I'm like, oh my God, like, this is my life. This is what happens to me. This is how I feel. Like, this is what's happening on the inside. But on the outside, I'm trying to keep everything together and I'm losing my shit on the inside. Like, it is tearing me down. And I'm like, oh my God, like, this is so crazy. So once I realized that, then now I have another name. So I was like, okay, that's OCD. So I start doing additional research about OCD and I'm like, I've got to figure out like how do I help myself with this? So I go see my dentist. So at the time I had braces. So I get to my orthodontist. So I get to my orthodontist and she was very aware of like everything that had happened, the mental health crisis. Like she was so supportive. Like it's funny because I remember I was talking to one of my friends and I was telling them because when the mental health crisis happened, a lot of people were trying to get me to come back to the States. And I was like, I can't do that. I can't come back to the States. And they were like, I said, I'm going to go to Mexico City. Like, at least I know people there. So they were like, well, who do you know there? And I was like, my dentist. And they were like, your dentist? Like, how's your dentist about to help you with your mental health, basically, right? Well, I get to my dentist and I'm explaining to her what happened. And I'm like, I'm just, girl, it's been a lot. So I said, I need a psychologist. I'm like, I need to figure out like what's going on. I don't know. So she was like, I have a patient. I have a patient and she's a psychologist. And she said, I bet she knows somebody who can help. This was like a Tuesday or Wednesday. Child, that very next day, she messaged me and she was like, here's the number. She speaks English and give her a call. So I messaged the psychologist and I'm like, hey, how do you explain all this? I'm like, hey, I've been through a lot. I had a mental health crisis and also I'm struggling with bathrooms and like, it's a lot. I don't know what the hell is wrong with me. When do you have availability? So so she was like, can you come on Friday? And so that Friday I go and I meet with the psychologist. And through my work with my psychologist, I really started to understand how to give myself grace about what I had been experiencing and all the things that I had been experiencing over the course of my life. And she started to help me to just understand how my brain works because again I'm still saying stuff like I should be able to do this and I should be able to do that, and she was like helping me to release the should and just what do you need for yourself. So I've been working with my psychologist now for 2 years. It's been interesting. A lot of what we had to work on was structure and creating structure for me that works for my life now, as opposed to the life that I used to live or the life that somebody told me that I had to live. And the other part of that was accepting that nothing is wrong with me. Because I used to be like, as I told y'all, for instance, all these experiences that happened with the different friend groups that I had and all that, I'm like, I've got to be the problem. Because I'm clearly the common denominator. Like, what the hell is wrong with me? And it just felt like so inherently like I was the science project that I constantly had to fix and I constantly had to figure out how to be better so that people would care about me or wouldn't walk away or like wouldn't that people would stay and care and see, the same way that I'm caring about other people. And I am still very much in this journey of understanding what it means to be neurodivergent. And so just for label's sake, but just to kind of, I don't know. bring us some common language, let's just say. So I have understood that I definitely got that ADHD, honey. So ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I also live with OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder, and CPTSD, which is complex post traumatic stress disorder, along with anxiety, depression, and being a black woman in the world. So the labels are not really the part that is important to me as far as none of it is really about identity, but what the labels do or what the understanding of these particular neurodivergences do is it helps to give language. Let's Talk Sis made a comment earlier, and she was like, when you have the language to be able to communicate what's going on, it unlocks this world. And what this process has done for me is that I now have the language to be able to advocate for myself and to be able to advocate for my brain. I now have the language and lived experience to be able to have conversations with other people about their brains. I now have the language and experience and understanding to be able to give myself more grace. Just a couple weeks ago, it was a lot that was going on, and I've been telling y'all I needed this break, right? Which is why I'm on break right now. But I was trying to I was this was when I had my old house shoes. And again, I don't want my feet to touch the floor like that. And I made a mistake and I touched the floor twice with my foot in the same 20 minutes, and I about lost my shit. Because what it feels like is like now I need to cut off my foot. That's what it really feels like. Like I just need to cut off my foot and I just won't have a foot. So of course I can't do that. But now it's like I need to go take a shower. I need to, like, because the thoughts are very much obsessive. And I don't know what the thoughts really are, but they're very much obsessive. And also let me add this additional layer. I'm a biologist, y'all. I have grown cultures of bacteria. I have swabbed things in life and put it on a plate in a lab and put it in the incubator and seen the bacteria flourish. Do you know how much work it takes when you understand what is happening at a microscopic level that nobody can see, but you know that it's there? And I have to divorce myself from that every single moment. Oh my God, it's torture. It's torture. So I'm still learning how to live with these neurodivergences, but it is giving me the opportunity to give myself so much more grace. Like, I really do have to be much kinder with myself. And it's interesting because it's kind of like this back and forth process of like nobody saw this, right? Because I started out telling y'all all of these things that were happening as I was a child that, I'm being broke out of, but all of that was symptoms of the fact that her brain operates a little differently. She has a different type of spirit. Then, when you start talking about the intersection between people who are neurodivergent and people who are spiritually gifted, and how those gifts and those neurodivergences work together, it's a lot. Because many people who are neurodivergent are also very empathetic. We feel energy, we feel very deeply, and it's really difficult to process that sometimes. And because we feel deeply, a lot of times we get taken advantage of because people are dishonest. So another thing that they say about neurodivergent people is that we have difficulty reading social cues, and that is not the truth. What happens is that people be lying and people don't give authentic social cues, or people feel like they have a right to be able to infringe upon your boundaries. Let me give y'all an example, then I'm gonna get out of here. So there's this guy that reached out to me and was telling me that he can teach me Spanish, right? Because I'm trying to get conversational. So I'm like, okay, message me, this my number, whatever, like message me about the things. So also, I don't have notifications on my phone. So I also didn't get the messages for a while. But okay. So I finally get the messages and I'm like, hey, I don't have notifications on my phone. Now that I know that you're talking to me, I'll do a better job of checking this or whatever. And in his messages, he's like, hey, love, hey, amor, hey, mi corazon, which is something that they do in Latin America and South America. Hispanic people, Latin people, they do a lot of that. Hey, love, hey, mi amor, mi heart. And what I have discovered, it don't mean shit. And because I am somebody who is autistic, oh, I didn't mention the autism. That's also a thread through all of this. But I words mean things, right? So you calling me love and amor and all that kind of stuff, and then you gonna get mad about something. And the moment that you get mad, then it's about to be F you, your funky beat. Like, so to cut it out. So what I said to him was, actually, let me read to y'all, because I love a good quotable. I said, I would like to say that my name is Kimberland. I know here you all use amor and love very, in all caps, loosely, but it makes me feel uncomfortable as it doesn't mean anything. And those words mean a lot to me, and I don't use them freely. So if you can please call me Kimberlyn, that would be best. And then I said, you can write in Spanish, it's easier to translate, whatever. So he says, hola, when I say love or heart, is my way of treating a woman like you well. So I said, I understand your intention. I am sharing with you that it doesn't feel that way. I appreciate that you think I'm a good woman, but in all fairness, you don't know that to be true. We don't know each other at all. So I would appreciate you using my name when you refer to me and leaving out amor, corazon, or any other pet names. They do not feel good to me coming from a stranger. Thank you for understanding. You know what that man said after that? Mi amor. He said, my love is that here in Colombia and Antioquia, we are paisa. That's how we talk. It's a way of treating you well, even if we don't know each other. So I said, that's interesting that this is your response. I already told you that I understand the cultural practice and have respectfully requested that you do not. And you are continuing to do something I have explicitly asked you not to do. Is that correct? So then he says, Kimberly, which is not my name. So now I'm about to block you. So he says, Kimberly, can I just come to your house and we talk about it? And then you tell me we can start classes? So I said, no, I'm not available and I don't want you at my house, especially when you are showing me that you do not respect what I'm telling you my boundaries are. So he says, well, I'm sorry that you are taking things the wrong way. It's just that we are different cultures. So now he's blocked because those words don't mean anything. You're using those words and you want me to feel like you're respecting me when I'm telling you how to respect me, but then you're choosing not to do that. And so that's what usually happens in interactions that we have with people. And there are so many intersections here. So there's the neurodivergence, there's the blackness, there's being a woman, there's also being from a different culture. The issue is not that I don't understand. The issue is that I made it very clear to you, and you are making a choice not to understand. And that is usually what happens. Or there is some type of inauthentic expression. And then I take you at face value and literally, because words literally have meanings, and you're literally saying something, and then come to find out you was lying the whole time. That is what happens. So navigating that is really interesting. And what I'll say is what we find is that neurodivergent people often wind up being around other neurodivergent people because we don't have to explain this. Because I know that I'm dealing with somebody that when they say something that they mean what the hell they're saying. that words actually mean something to them. So I'm going to take y'all back to remember the soul work that we've been having all this time, where we've been talking about community and what you need to feel safe in community and all of that. If you are a neurodivergent person, it's really important to have a community that understands that, a community that is not telling you that you're not. Because I've been telling y'all over this time. It was just a dude a few weeks ago who was a psychologist who was telling me that I'm not autistic. I'm not autistic. I have Asperger's. Sir, you don't know shit about me. What are you talking about right now? But for people to have the audacity to try to tell you something about yourself when they don't live in your body because they think they read something in a book one time. So I'm going to go back to self diagnosis is very valid. And if you're asking yourself, I've seen a few comments come up and it's like, yeah, that feels like me. And I think I might, yep, that feels authentic to my experience. I invite you to get really curious, right? You don't have to put a name on it. You don't have to label it. You don't have to make it a particular thing outside of I'm learning how my brain works. Right now, once you find, okay, it feels like I'm kind of like here, or it might be this, like these experiences feel parallel to mine, then you might be able to develop some additional language. But the goal is not to necessarily have a diagnosis. The goal is to be able to learn more about your brain. And I will say this too, if you living in the United States, if you living in the United States, you want to be very careful right now about diagnoses and even mental health specialists because how can I say this and make this make sense without it sounding like I'm trying to discourage you from getting support, because that's not what I'm trying to do. But what I need us to realize is that, let me say this, there right now is a decolonizing movement for mental health specialists right now, because a part of the licensure process, from what I understand, is very much colonized thought. So it's very much around you should be behaving this particular way. And if you don't behave this particular way, then we may commit you or whatever, right? And this is the part that's being left out of all of that, are the systemic and cultural things that exist, especially for us as Black women, that are contributing to the layers of distress that people might be feeling, or the layers of hopelessness that people might be feeling. So if you don't have a mental health specialist who is also practicing decolonization, it becomes a very toxic environment, right? Melissa said the labels help them put folks in a box. Correct. So, what I want to say is, if you are feeling like, okay, these are some things that I need to get curious about, this is stuff I need to think about in my brain, I want you to be really intentional about the mental health support that you seek and asking questions about where they stand on things like colonization, decolonization, structural and systemic racism, understanding the plight of a Black woman. Like, understand that you have a right to interview your mental health specialist and decide whether that person works for you or not, because you want to be able to learn more about your brain in a safe environment where you don't feel like I still have to mask here, because that defeats the purpose. And when we say masking, that's when you present a certain way. So when you present a certain way on the outside, but there's shit that's happening on the inside that you're trying to control. You don't want to have to show up to your mental health support guarded. You want to be able to go, you're there to get support, right? So make sure that you're asking questions about who they are, how they are, what decolonizing work they are doing, where they stand on particular topics. Like, you interview them as well. Okay. And then I need you to follow your spirit. If it does not feel like this is somebody that can fully support you in the whole of you, remove yourself from that environment. I am working on a collection of mental health specialists that I trust and that I know subscribe to this school of thought. If you would like suggestions about that, if you will email me at kimberland@kimberlandjackson.com and just put mental health specialist in the title, and then I will send you over some recommendations. I am working on a directory, but that is not ready yet. Okay, so that's going to be a 2026 thing. But if you're saying to yourself right now, I need support, I really need to think about what this looks like, I want to get to somebody that I feel might be able to support me, please send me an email at kimberland@kimberlandjackson.com and I will definitely give you some links. I also want to say, though, I'm on break right now. So it'll be top of my list come when I get back from break in January. Okay. But go ahead and send it so that you can get it off your list. It's done. And then I will go ahead and respond in January. And then, you can kick that off and take it from there. All right. All right. So that is my journey. Now, I do want to pause here because the inner circle is here with me and they have been talking in the comments and processing in the comments and all that kind of things. So I'm curious if y'all have any questions that you want me to answer. Did you find your therapist on the first try? So, I've definitely had therapists that I have had to break up with over time. I've had multiple therapists along the way, but usually, so the resources that I usually use to find a mental health specialist are Therapy for Black Girls and Psychology Today. And usually, what I would do, so like one of my therapists, the therapist that I talked about when she helped me understand about the food and the energy and all that kind of stuff, she was in Tampa. And I had found her on uh therapy for black girls, but it was a few people, so it's maybe like three women that I had emailed and she was the only one that responded and I took that as a sign. So basically what I would do is I would put up some kind of like, listen, Lord, now if that ain't the right person for me, don't send me over there to them. Okay, now close that door. But that was after I had had different experiences with therapists. The first therapist that I ever had was a white woman, and she was a Christian. She's actually the one who told me about boundaries. But my only requirement at that time was that it was somebody who was a Christian because I didn't want to have to explain church language. Then the next therapist that I had after that was a black woman, and she wound up taking me on because the previous therapist was moving. So it was literally just like, hey, I'm new, I got your caseload, so here we are. But she's also the therapist that introduced me to the journey that was the foundation for Discover Your Destiny. So I said all that to say I have had pretty good luck with therapists. But if you are feeling anything that feels off, I definitely would recommend talking about it, like, addressing it with your therapist and then also paying attention to how they respond to whatever your concern might be. But one of the things from all the mental health panels that I've done and like all the work I've done in mental health that therapists have said consistently, if it is not working for you, find you somebody else because the therapy space is supposed to be sacred and it's supposed to be safe. So if it doesn't feel safe, find you somebody else. And I know that is easier said than done, but that's also why having networks and being able to ask people for recommendations is also really helpful. Because even if, let's say, I tell y'all, like my therapist, my trauma therapist that I was working with, let's say I tell, and also let me say this before I say that. I found my trauma therapist because I had messaged somebody that had been on Beautiful Brown Girls, that had been on my mental health panel. And after I had the mental health crisis, I trusted her. So I was like, hey, I need somebody who specializes in this. And then she got me to my therapist. So what I was about to say was, even if you find somebody that you're interested in, and let's say they have a long wait list or they're not taking clients right now, ask them who they would suggest that you work with, and then they are usually very good about giving you a recommendation. So what I'll do in the description is I will put some of the people that we've had, for instance, on Beautiful Brown Girls before, that have been mental health specialists on our mental health panels. I'll share their information, and you all can feel free to say, I got your information from Kimberland. I don't know if that gives you bonus points, but but definitely you can say, I saw a video from Kimberland and she had your information in the description. And so I wanted to reach out. So I definitely can do that. But you might have to shop around. You might have to shop around a little bit. And that's why you also want to know what you want to get out of this space, right? Therapy is very much a self driven space and it should be treated that way. So you also have to get curious about what it is that you want out of that therapeutic space so you can make sure that it is meeting your needs. You paying for this. So get your money's worth, right? In the past, organizations have been really intentional about having free resources for therapy. So that's something else that I'm looking for because sometimes that is a barrier to access is being able to get to a therapist. So one of the things I will say, and I don't know how safe this is going to remain, but using your employee assistance program. So if you have EAP benefits at your job, please do take advantage of those benefits. What I will say, so what I did for me, because there was a time when I was in Pennsylvania that I had three mental health specialists at the same time. My EAP mental health specialist, I only talked about certain things in that container. And so, especially if your trauma and experiences are work related, and if you're a Black woman, it's very likely that that is the case. That was a place for me to document the impact that that work environment was having on me. So I talked about that in that container. I had another mental health specialist that I talked about leaving the US with. So that was a different person. Then I had a third mental health specialist where I sat on her wait list for almost a year. And in that container, I talked about my relationships with my mother. So you very much can decide like what you want to bring into the space, especially if it's linked to work. So you have your EAP benefits. Unfortunately, a lot of mental health specialists are not able to take insurance because the rigmarole and all that kind of stuff that goes along with it. But some of them do operate on a sliding scale. So you want to ask about that. You also want to ask them if they have any types of programs or something like that where they would be willing to do sessions. So with the EAP sessions, you usually get 5 sessions per instance. And there are ways that the therapist can code things to be like she need 5 more. And she need 5 more. It's a new situation that's happening now. Like there are ways that they can kind of make that happen, but you want to look for the free opportunities if you are able. So EAP is going to give you free, and then if you go through like therapy for Black girls and stuff like that, they do so many free hours per year that they will give to a particular organization. Point is, you want to ask. You want to ask so that it can be as accessible as it possibly can. I would say one of the mental health specialists that I had, the one who helped me prepare my mind to leave, she did all of my sessions for free. And I was so like at a that baby, I was at a time where I was girl, girl, you are saving my life right now. So that might also happen, so you don't know till you ask. You don't know until you ask. So please do ask if they have any ways to be able to lighten the burden or be able to give you access. I hope this has been helpful. I try to be as transparent about my life as possible because I feel like if I'm asking myself these questions, somebody else might be asking themselves these questions as well. So even just the urge to create a safe therapeutic space, like there's something, that you can be doing towards making sure that you are taking care of your mental health. I would definitely say right now, 2025, we got to prioritize us. A part of our resistance is making sure that we are getting our minds in a place where we are grounded and stable and able to strategize. So if you are saying to yourself, my brain is feeling overwhelmed, my brain always used to feel like I was drowning. Like I just felt like I was underwater or that my brain was too big for my head. If you're feeling stuff like that, that means that we need to tap in and we need to figure out what's going on. You may possibly be approaching burnout, and that's a lot as well. So, when you talk about burnout, as well as neurodivergence, as well as being Black in America, that's a lot of things that you're dealing with. And a lot of times, our brains have been trying to give us warning signals, and we haven't been honoring them. I think my closing quote for today is curiosity over judgment. I really want to leave us with that thought. What does it look like to be more curious about the life that you are living, about the brain that is working to keep you alive? And also, gonna add this on. I'm curious about what you need to get curious about when it comes to your brain and the way that your brain operates. What do you need to get curious about when it comes to your brain and the way that your brain operates? Okay? So that's it. That's all. I appreciate y'all for hanging out with me again. I will say, if you are wanting to be a part of these conversations, please come hang out with us over in the archive and find your way to the Inner Circle collection. If you go to patreon.com/slash minding my black as business, that is where you will be able to find the community. Okay? All right, y'all. That's it. Bye. Thank you for listening to The Frolicking Truth, where joy meets justice and our nervous systems get free. Please be sure to like, rate, and comment. Subscribe to the YouTube page, Minding My Black Ass Business, and follow me on all social platforms. Until next time, bye.